trauma nurse. People come in with a stab wound or something or car accident, and everybody triages that person and everybody has a role, but they're all communicating, right? And I think that is the best way to do things. I actually invited a guest to come to my lab this week who's a physical therapist, and it was an ACL return to play lab we did with the students. And so what we did on every station of testing, he and I would stand at that station and talk about what we're seeing and what we're looking at and how we're looking at things a little bit differently, like from the perspective of a strength and conditioning coach to the perspective of a physical therapist, right? And the students loved it. They thought, this is great, because then you end up getting a much bigger view. You get a bigger picture. There's more pieces, there's more information. But then you get less you get less error, you get less stones sort of unturned, if you will. I've never heard the term. I love that term. Trans something you said. So
Transdisciplinary rather than like
yeah,
everybody just.
interdisciplinary doesn't really work that effectively, because it's like being in a factory where every single person on the conveyor belt is actually in their own silo with walls you can't see through. So it's like the athlete comes to me, I screw on a tire, and then it goes along, and then it goes to you, and you put on the steering wheel, but yet we didn't even talk about anything. It doesn't work, you
No.
know. And that's one reason why I'm a bit anal sometimes with the people on my team, like not going outside of that, because that's how we operate. And I just didn't know there was a word for that, but it's absolutely imperative to have everybody looking at a problem, like you said, with their own unique perspective of that problem. I mean, that's how corporations solve problems,
Yeah, like it
right?
sounds so fucking myopic. And like even old, like I guess the idea of, okay, a physical therapist is going to work and then tell the strength coach what they did,
No, no, no.
like that might be somewhat
Yep,
progressive to somebody
sure.
who's so fucking old school where people don't talk to each other. But like it doesn't
Or if
make
they
any.
assume there's a hierarchy. Is there a
Correct.
hierarchy?
Yes. And it's like, no, there's no, like,
No.
why not let the strength coach be like, well, okay, yeah, here's the acute injury, but like, this is the way I see it right now. And not that my say is anything, but like, I'm not your boss, but like, this is what I see. Okay. Now that
Totally.
same acute injury, 20 weeks later, why can't the physical therapist be like, huh, I'm looking at their sprint training. Why are you doing, like, this is how like, I don't know. I guess I just feel once I learned about it, I was like, fuck, I wish I knew about it before. But now I'm like, I've got to educate the masses on it because it just seems so simple. And like, yes, this needs to be done. This is the right way rather than this continuum where you have acute injury, physical therapist here, and the bands and all the bullshit that you said. And over here is strength coach, sport coach. Like, no, like it's, yes,
Yeah,
this makes everybody feel fucking
yeah.
nice. That's why.
I think so. And it's just not a very creative or innovative approach. And so you could be on the B team if you want to go that route, or you could focus on winning, right? And winning. And I think most athletes want to win and they want the best possible care. And, it'd be like, I don't know, if you had a kid and you and your spouse just didn't communicate on anything. And then the kid's like, well,
Hey,
dad
yeah.
said that I can have spaghetti for breakfast, and mom said I can stay out till 2 a.m. playing video games. Like, it just doesn't, you and I both know it doesn't work,
That's fucking brilliant. You're
right?
right. Yeah. Like, oh,
So,
okay. Like, yeah, my wife, perfect example. Megan got home late last night. And I had the kids like all day and was doing things. And then like, okay, hey, I'm leaving. Like, you're in charge now. Like, okay, my shift's done. Your shift's
yeah.
up. Like, no, what the fuck? Like,
Well, but couples do operate that way, but that's another
yeah, no,
conversation.
that's
But
that.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's an aside. Sorry, folks. But yeah, I think if we can get more people doing that, um, and even if I would say that's how we actually teach them. So if I want to talk about teaching for a quick sec, like my
Yeah.
third
Go
years
ahead.
do only case studies. So it's like they get a mock client with mock data, mock problems, like real problems. Like, I'm afraid of squatting because I'm afraid that my legs are going to get too big, or whatever the mock problems are. And then they work in a group of 4 and they come up with like a hierarchy of what's the most important thing we need to tackle first, but oftentimes the group of four might argue on that, and that's fine. I said this is all part of it. Like arguing isn't a bad thing. Arguing is a good thing. Disagreeing is a good thing because we're actually peeling back
Yes.
more and more layers of this problem. But people that, they spend so much time on social media now that they actually don't know how to talk to people anymore. Or they text and they don't know how to talk to people anymore. And getting people in a room together and actually tackling the problem and blurting stuff out is, even if it's wrong, who cares? It at least you're trying, and at least you're trying. Even sometimes when we're wrong, we learn that, hey, that was like not the right approach, but now I really know. That's where the aha moments come from. So, you know nobody has all the answers for every domain. And a physiotherapist or physical therapist isn't a strength coach, and a strength coach isn't a physical therapist, but they can bring a lot of good insight into the problem. And there is no hierarchy, so that's like more of a matrix system, which I think part of the problem is the ego stuff you talk about maybe stems from insecurity around, like, oh well, the PT has like another 4 years or 2 years of education and maybe they outrank me. But I have students that don't even finish their undergrad with good problem solving skills, and I'm happy to listen to them. So I think we need to get off of our soapbox.
100% agreed. Speaking of a soapbox, how can people get a thicker skin when listening to other people standing on their soapbox and not get so offended?
First of all, I think you need to be born in the 70s.
Okay, for those that, if we can't change that.
Okay, dang. Get growing a pair is really what you're getting at. Well,
Correct.
it takes practice, first of all. So if you've never been exposed to, we'll call it change oriented feedback or criticism, like ever, again, it goes back to validation and affirmations, right? If that's all you are used to hearing from people, then it's going to come as a very big shock when it does happen. So I guess starting with microdosing it, maybe small exposures. The sandwich technique has been researched, doesn't work.
Yeah, I
Most
know
people,
that thing's
people like you and
fucking,
I, it's bullshit. It's so
yeah, like,
unauthentic.
oh my
Oh,
God.
so Justin, I really love your football hoodie. That's just awesome. You look great in the color blue. And by the way, the essay you wrote sucks. And then actually, I think you're a great dad. And,
What? Like, what'd you just
it's,
say? Like,
yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. So I think it's important when we give people feedback and it's change oriented, you know, you want to make sure that you have some rapport with that person, because usually it's taken better if we do have rapport. But what's funny? I had a meeting yesterday with our football coach, and he, just because he's my friend, and we're sitting there having our, okay, I'll be honest, we're having beers. So we're having beer, and because the guys had a really good game last weekend, I was very proud and happy. And we were just talking about um, giving feedback to athletes. And he just said, as long as the coaches aren't swearing, the kids seem to take it better. There's this something about swearing where kids of this generation, right, playing sport now, where swearing seems to be the offensive part, which I thought was kind of interesting, because I think our generation, Justin, we're used to that,
yeah, like, that's
like,
just trying
what
to
the
talk.
fuck, or get
Yeah.
your head out of your ass, or whatever the swearing kind of just came out, and you almost didn't notice it. So
Yeah.
maybe my advice is, don't shy away from giving people change oriented feedback, because you're doing them a favor. Maybe minus the swearing. Obviously, don't get personal. So, Joey, you're such a dumbass all the time, that kind of thing. That's getting personal. But you also don't want to shame them in front of their peers either. That
Yeah.
doesn't
No.
typically work.
No.
But pull them aside and say, hey, you know what? I don't, I hope you take this, coming from a place of mentorship and guidance. But I noticed blah 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 blah. And I tend to use the term I noticed, or it's come to my attention, blah 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 blah. So it's kind of more soft, right? But it's still direct, and do it verbally, right? We don't give people feedback on a text. We don't do it on social media unless it's science for sport and they post things that are ridiculous. Then there might be a smack, right? But you know,
Smacks welcome.
that's okay. But they're not living up to their claim. But and then you can encourage, right? Strongly encourage. Like, hey,
That
I've seen you be able to do this, this, and this before. I know you can do this. So
yeah.
where is it today? That kind of thing.
That we had a mental skills performance coach on a couple weeks ago, and I
Oh,
asked
good.
him a
Yeah.
similar question, and one of his answers, I'm going back to the notes here, is he talked about like you started with an observation, like, hey, I've
I
noticed you
noticed.
do
Yeah.
XYZ. Now, based off that, that makes me feel frustrated because I see the potential and or it saddens me. And right, like, so now you're detaching your emotions from what you like, hey, I saw this, it made me feel this. Have some sort of follow-up, like, hey, it's a need of mine. I need to see you tap into this potential because of what I see in you. And then finishing up with some sort of call and action. So, like, hey, I encourage you to change your behaviors to A, B, and C. Um, and he talked about that as a way to detach your emotion and be able to truly tell people what you see and what you feel without drawing on emotion. So that way people are like, well, you're just attacking me. And it's like, no, 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 I'm telling you what I saw.
Yeah.
What I saw made me feel this. And then I'm following it up with some action. To quote my cousin Vinny, does the defense hold water?
I wouldn't use that approach.
You
I
would
would
not.
nope. I
What
would
would you do?
say I wouldn't say anything about how it makes me feel. I would say I noticed this happening, and then I would probably put it back to them. What did you notice? And I'd make it open ended, to make it a more of a teachable opportunity. And let's say they agree. Let's say, yeah, I actually noticed that too, coach. And, the thing is, a lot of times kids do notice or are aware of mistakes. So mistakes aren't necessarily something that we need to continue to revisit, but solutions I like. So I like the end part where it became more about next time on your next opportunity, try this. Or do you think that you could, let's just say the person's getting beat to loose balls, which is very frustrating for coaches because that's a hustle play, right? If you're just constantly we know that like most team sports are possession games. So if you're not getting loose balls, you don't have possession, you're probably not going to win. We know that. Okay, cool. So, we noticed Billy in particular not hustling to loose balls. So I would start with Billy. I noticed that you're struggling or you're not getting to the loose balls, and then I'd wait because maybe Billy lied to you about their ankle sprain before the game, right? And their ankle is effed. Maybe Billy pooped his pants in the first quarter. I don't know. Okay, but I don't know. I don't have enough information. The only information I have is what I saw or what I think I saw. And what we think we see is not always 100% correct, ironically. So Billy's like, yeah, coach, I just know what's going on. I said, okay, well, look, are you having, I might say things like, are you having trouble focusing? You know, what can I assist you with? What can I do to help you? I'm like, coach, I need you to yell at me. Okay, I can do that. Coach, I just need you to encourage me. Or coach, I don't need anything. I'm gonna turn this around. And then I'd say something like, yeah, you are. You are gonna turn this around. Just I'm here just to gently point things out. But I want the kids to figure out how to solve it, right? Um, because hopefully I've already set my expectations early in the year that we win loose balls and that's that, right? So I would circle back to that. So I wouldn't talk about how it makes me feel. I would never tell an athlete I'm frustrated. How is that going to help them?
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.